Hey, what's up? I'm Showbiz Shelly, and I am so excited to be here today with Justin Baldoni. Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I am doing good. Okay. Well, you just told me actually right before we started this, you used to way back in the day be a radio DJ, which I want to hear more about, but some people might recognize you from TV, and now you're an author. So I want to cover all of these things. But first, tell me about your DJ days. I was so fascinated by this.
Yeah, so my first job, I was 16, was for a top 40 station in Medford, Oregon.
Okay.
It was the number one top 40 station called Beat 93, and I got the job because we were supposed to do a project on potential jobs you would want to have in your life. And I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, but I was in this small town in Oregon. There was no entertainment. It was that or a newscaster. And I love music. I used to make music videos for the girls that I liked. It was like, I was just musically, I don't have any musical talent, but I love music. So I did it on a DJ, being a DJ. And so I interviewed the station director, and he offered me a job doing overnights. So I was the overnight DJ on Friday and Saturday night for probably a year. And then I moved up and I was doing midday weekends. And then Clear Channel came in and bought a competing station, and KISS came in. It was 102.7 KISS FM. And I moved over to KISS.
Wow.
So I was doing middays while I was in high school on KISS. I was pre-recording my stuff. Then I would show up after track practice and do the rest of the show. And I would do the remotes. I'd go out, I'd broadcast live. I would go to, I was like emceeing concerts and stuff like that. So between 16 and 18. And then I thought, I was like, maybe I'll go into radio when I turned 18, when I moved to LA. And, God had other plans.
Okay, so then take me through. So then you think you're going to be a radio DJ, you're in LA, and then what happens next?
I fall in love. I get my heart broken, which I write about in my book. I fall into acting, which I never, and we always used to joke I had the perfect face for radio. I was a bit of an ugly duckling when I was younger, and I don't know. Maybe I changed. Somehow I fell into the
hard
business.
To believe, but okay.
Oh, there are some embarrassing pictures of my high school years. I assure you.
Really? Okay. Some people might recognize you from Jane the Virgin. Do you remember auditioning for that show? Was that one of the first ones you went after?
Oh no, that was 10 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Shelly, I'm a 10-year overnight success.
But that's how it usually works, right? Yeah.
That's how it works. No. One of my first big job was I was a regular on a show called Everwood, maybe in 2005, 2004, 2005. Jane the Virgin came. I was 30. I was 29, 30 when I got that role. And I had actually stopped acting to just focus on directing and building my company. And I was making these documentaries about amazing individuals living with terminal illnesses called My Last Days. And just trying to figure out how I could be of service with my gifts instead of just being in this hamster wheel of auditioning for things that I don't really care about or playing roles that I don't really like, and having my entire life be at somebody else's will, and having my worth kind of based off whether or not I was working as an actor or not, which is one of the hardest industries to work in. So I was just doing what I loved, and then I got a random call to audition for Jane the Virgin, and that was it.
Wow. And so, we're talking about your book, Man Enough. So how do you, you go through all that and then you end up writing this book. Well, how did you make that transition and sort of what happened to get you to that point?
It's a very long conversation, Shelly. But the book's called Man Enough, Undefining My Masculinity. And for as long as I can remember, I have noticed that who the world wanted me to be, who the world expected me to be as a man, was oftentimes in conflict with who I felt like I was as a human. And that was a lot of little, as I call them, bee stings over the course of my life. A lot of moments and instances where I knew I had to act a certain way or do a certain thing in order to be accepted or to be seen as enough. And yet it oftentimes was at the expense of who I am, my moral compass, if you will. And that starts early on. That starts early on with being mean to girls, when you're a boy and you kind of beat up girls and you're mean to them and you treat them bad, that's how that that's how they know you like them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into, bros before hoes and the guy code and all this stuff. And you talk about allegiance to your gender, and the things that we have to do as boys and men to be considered men. And then, that doesn't always work. I ended up hurting myself. I ended up hurting a lot of people that I loved. I ended up hurting a lot of women. I just wasn't proud of a lot of the decisions I had been making over the course of my life. And I found myself needing to be different men in different situations versus just being myself. And that's the thing about masculinity, right? It's a performance. It is something that you put on. It's something that is so fragile that it can be taken away. But if you think about it, femininity doesn't exist in that same spectrum. You can't take away someone's femininity. It's just there by design. But masculinity is something that has to be earned, and that has to, it almost has to be given to you, right, by another man. But yet they can also take it away, and so can women. And the whole thing to me just felt weird and strange and odd. And when I got a little bit of fame with Jane the Virgin, I started talking about the things that I cared about. My wife, my daughter, female empowerment, equality, my faith. And that kind of led me on a journey to go deeper and deeper and deeper. I did a TED Talk on the subject, and eventually, 4 years later, I wrote this book.
That's amazing. And so was there, because I feel like, guys can, like you said, kind of always try to fit into that box of masculinity and just go on their whole lives and never even realize they're doing it. Like, was there a moment for you where it was like, I just don't want to do this anymore? Or was it more of a progression, like you're saying?
No, it's a progression. We're all frogs in cold water, then we're slowly turning up the heat to make it boiling. We don't even realize we're dying. And it's not something that, it wasn't just one thing. What I can tell you is I was tired of asking myself why I said that. Why did I do that? Why am I what is this invisible barrier that I have up in front of myself that prevents me from connecting with other men in my life, from my own parents? And oftentimes I think as human beings, but I'm specifically talking to men, if we're sensitive enough, we can feel this armor that we didn't ask for. We can feel this barrier go up in moments where we puff up our chests and we don't allow anything in. It's like in those medieval days when the castle guard gates would kind of come down when there was an incoming threat. It's like, where does that come from? And why does that happen with me and another friend? Why does that happen with me and my father? Why can't I hug him and be close to him like I was when I was younger? Who decided that I couldn't, be emotionally or physically affectionate with my dad because we're two men, right? And all of these things kind of you start to ask yourself, what the hell is this? Where did this come from? It didn't come from me. This is learned, socialized behavior. And that means that if it's learned, socialized behavior, then it can be unlearned. And that's the process I'm on. That's what undefining masculinity is. It's unlearning the behavior that hurts me, that hurts the women in my life, that has been hurting, queer and gay and gender nonconforming and trans folks. It's causing so many of the problems that exist in the world. It's the reasons we have so many mass shootings in our country. As men, we have unexpressed pain and sorrow and loneliness, which turns into the only acceptable thing we're allowed to feel, the only acceptable feeling, which is anger and rage. Because at some point, all of us boys have to, in order to be accepted, reject all that is feminine and accept all that is masculine. And in doing so, we sever ourselves from our hearts. We sever ourselves from the ability to feel, from our empathy and compassion. And when we do that, we don't have an outlet for our sadness, for the pressure, for the stress, for all of the things that are happening to us men, which is why we die younger than women. We don't have an outlet for that stuff. So it just builds up in our bodies. That's why we have more strokes and heart attacks and cancers.
Yeah.
That's why we kill ourselves at 4 times of a higher rate than women do. And all of this stuff is because we have not allowed ourselves to explore who we are as human beings and build that bridge from our head to our hearts. We've cut it off. And so this is all about unlearning these things. It's about deprogramming ourselves. And it's not a self-help book. It's not me saying, here's the solution. It's me saying, here's my life and here are my stories, and inviting you into yours. And whether you are a man or a woman or a trans man or a gender nonconforming person, this book is for you because the story is universal. We're all living under the same patriarchal system. And I'm hearing that women are able to understand and see their men in a whole new way by reading this book. And that makes me really, really happy and proud.
But you answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, who is this book for? But you just answered it.
For humans.
For humans. And so when people read this book, I mean, and I think you covered this too, they can expect to hear about your life. I mean, do you offer kind of tips for those guys who are kind of stuck and they don't know what to do?
It's not so much of a tip book. It's more of it's an invitation. This is not a motivational book. It's an invitational book. And it is it's a meditation, if you will. It's going to ask you to ask yourself the questions. And if you can see your story in mine, then maybe you can handle it in a similar way that I did. But the goal is not to say that all of our stories are the same. The goal is to say, this is how I was affected. How were you affected? Right? This is how my 10-year-old brain processed seeing porn for the first time. How did yours? Did that have an effect on your life? This is what it feels like to have imposter syndrome in some ways. This is the pressure. What does that look like for you? And then I offer things that have worked for me, but that's not at its core what the book is.
Well, it sounds like too, you kind of got to this place by asking a lot of questions and a lot of self-reflection. Yeah. So it sounds like this book kind of can maybe aid in that too. So yeah. This is so good, Justin. So what are your future plans? Do you want to write more books? Do you want to do more acting? Do you want to speak? What do you want to do?
Writing a book is terrible. I don't know if I want to write a book.
What's terrible about it? Yeah.
It's like a year-long therapy session, and then you're going to put your book out there and all your thoughts and feelings for other people to read and to judge. It's pretty terrible. Yeah. But when you do it for service and we hope we can affect change, then it's worth it. I'm building and I've built a studio, so we're financing and making movies. I'm still directing films. We're producing a bunch of films this summer. We're building the Man Enough brand itself. So we have some cool things we're announcing soon that tie into the theme of masculinity and really building that out. And I'm just looking for ways always to be of service with whatever my gifts are. I think every one of us on this planet, regardless of whether our gifts are things that give us public attention and reward or go unnoticed, we all have this ability to impact and change the world around us. And I'm always just looking for my ways to do that, both big and small.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I feel like too, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm kind of seeing like a core group of you guys, like on social, kind of coming together to talk about these things and talk about the book and everything. And I find it really interesting. It's a great topic.
Yeah, we just want to talk about it. The more we talk about it, the more we take that shame out of the, as I say in the book, the dimly lit basements of our heart. And we get it out and we talk about the things that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to leave people with before we go?
No, I think what I would just want to remind everybody is that all of us are on a journey. In the Baha'i faith, we're told that the only difference between human beings is that we're at different stages of our spiritual development. And I would just say that as craziness increases, as things around the world that our tragedies get shoved in our faces, we just always try to remember that we are all human beings and we're all on this journey together, and we don't know how it ends or where we're going next. But what matters is that we are kind and compassionate and loving to each other, because we're all trying to figure this out, even when you don't agree with somebody. And if we can remember that who we are as we are is enough, then hopefully we won't have to ever prove ourselves or make somebody else feel like we're right and they're wrong in the process. And we can find that bridge instead of building a wall between all of us. And so that's my only thought.
That's so good, Justin. It was so nice to talk to you, and everybody should get your book, Man Enough, Undefining My Masculinity. And they can get it where? Everywhere, pretty much?
Yeah, you can get everywhere books are sold.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. It was so nice to talk to you, Justin.
Thank you, Shelly. So appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.